Welcome back to Worth Coin, the ultimate destination for uncovering rare treasures hidden in your pocket change. Today, we're diving deep into the forgotten world of 7 ultra-rare US 1-cent coins in bad condition that could still be worth a fortune. Yes, even those old, scratched-up pennies lying at the bottom of your drawer could hold secrets worth hundreds of thousands of dollars or more. So don't blink, because what you'll see in the next few minutes might just change the way you look at every single penny forever. Let's kick things off with a coin that most people would toss aside without a second thought, the 1971D Lincoln 1-cent coin in bad condition. Now, this coin doesn't sparkle. In fact, it might be rusted, dirty, scratched, or even a bit bent. But don't let appearances fool you, because this little worn-down penny could be hiding a jaw-dropping value. The D Mint mark tells us it was struck at the Denver Mint. In 1971, over 2.9 billion of these coins were produced. That's right, billion, with a B. So you might be thinking, how could a coin this common possibly be rare? Well, here's where it gets exciting. While most of these pennies are worth just a cent or two, some versions, especially error coins, have sold for over $450,000 at auction. Yes, you heard that right. A bad condition 1971D penny, barely recognizable, sold for 6 figures because of one shocking detail: a double die obverse error. This rare variety was caused during the minting process when the coin die struck the coin twice with a slight misalignment. That means Abraham Lincoln's profile, the motto "In God We Trust," the word liberty, and the date 1971 all appear slightly doubled, and if you know what to look for, unmistakable. Even in poor condition, if your coin shows these doubling signs, you could be holding a jackpot in your fingers. But that's not all. Some 1971D pennies also feature off-center strikes, broad strikes, or rare copper planchet varieties. A few were even struck on foreign planchets by mistake, giving them odd weights and surfaces. These errors are the hidden gems, and collectors are willing to pay an absolute fortune for them. In circulated condition, these errors can fetch $1,200 to $3,000. But in rare error varieties, even in bad shape, one of these coins recently hammered down at $456,150, all because of a double die. Let that sink in. A worn-out penny easily missed by the untrained eye, turning into a collector's dream. It gives you chills, doesn't it? Imagine discovering one of these in a coffee tin or a jar of old coins. Your heart racing as you realize it matches the doubling, the weight feels off, and suddenly, your penny could be worth more than your car or your house. So how can you spot a valuable 1971D penny? First, check for doubling on the obverse. Use a magnifying glass to inspect the lettering and Lincoln's profile. If you see shadows or doubled lines, don't ignore it. Next, weigh the coin. A normal Lincoln cent from this year should weigh about 3.11 grams if it's on a copper planchet. If it's significantly lighter or heavier, it could have been struck on the wrong metal. Another jackpot detail: even coins in damaged condition with heavy wear can still hold tremendous value, especially if they're linked to a known minting error. Remember, coin value isn't just about shine, it's about rarity, history, and the unexpected. And this is just the beginning. Moving on, let's talk about the 1982 Lincoln penny in bad condition, and trust me, this one's a real jaw-dropper. At first glance, this coin might look like a lost cause. Faded details, scratches, grime, maybe you can barely read the date. But beneath that rough surface could lie one of the most shocking discoveries in US coin history. 1982 was a major transition year for US pennies. Up until that point, pennies were made of 95% copper, but in '82, the US Mint began switching to a cheaper metal zinc with a thin copper coating. Here's where it gets wild. During the switch, 7 different varieties of 1982 pennies were produced. Some with small dates, some with large, some made of copper, some of zinc. A few rare errors even made it into circulation, but one error, just one, shook the entire coin collecting world. In 2013, a collector found a 1982D small date penny made from solid copper, a coin the mint said wasn't supposed to exist. Experts confirmed it was real, and it sold for a staggering $18,800. Years later, another one popped up and sold for even more. The mystery? No one knows exactly how many of these copper planchet 1982D small dates exist. Maybe a few dozen, maybe just two. And here's the crazy part. They could be sitting in your pocket change, hiding behind years of wear and grime. Even if your 1982 penny is dirty or worn down, if it's a small date version from Denver and weighs around 3.11 grams, you might be holding one of these unicorns. Copper coins are heavier than zinc ones, so a simple kitchen scale could reveal the truth. One lucky discovery, and boom, you're sitting on nearly $20,000, even in circulated shape. But the madness doesn't stop there. Some 1982 pennies have been found with wild mint errors, off-center strikes, double strikes, and even coin struck on foreign or defective planchets. One example of a 1982 penny struck on a planchet intended for a dime in horrible condition, mind you, sold for $9,500. Just imagine, beat-up coin that no one looked twice at, suddenly selling for thousands because of a mistake made over 40 years ago. What makes these 1982 pennies even more dangerous for collectors is their appearance. They don't stand out. There's no silver shine, no golden glow, they just look like any other penny, until you weigh it, inspect the date shape, and notice something feels off. That's why thousands of collectors are hunting these down like buried treasure. So how can you tell if you've got a small date? Look closely at the number 2 in the year. On small dates, it curls in tighter and sits higher, closer to the 8. It's a subtle detail, but it makes all the difference, and it could mean the difference between a coin worth 1 cent and one worth a life-changing sum. Don't overlook those nasty-looking 1982 pennies. Even in bad condition, they've turned up in estate boxes, old dressers, and junk drawers, and collectors are paying massive premiums just for the chance at a rare variety. By now, you're probably realizing something important. Condition doesn't always kill value. Sometimes, it hides it. Next up is a coin that's been hiding in plain sight for decades, the 1992 Lincoln 1 cent in fine condition. And folks, if you've got one of these with the right secret detail, you might be holding a coin worth more than a brand new luxury car or even a small house. Now, 1992 doesn't seem like a year to get excited about. Over 4.6 billion of these pennies were minted across the Philadelphia and Denver mints combined. The design is your classic Lincoln Memorial reverse, and, to the naked eye, these coins look just like any ordinary penny you'd find in your change jar. But here's where things get really interesting and seriously valuable. In that very year, the US Mint made a subtle change to the Lincoln cent design. They modified the spacing between the letters A and M in the word America. On the reverse of the coin, the new version, known as the close AM, was meant for use starting in 1993. But somehow, a small number of 1992 pennies accidentally received the 1993 reverse design and were released into circulation. This means a few 1992 Lincoln cents, both with and without mint marks, feature a close AM reverse, making them one of the most desirable modern errors in the entire US penny series. So, what does this mean for you? If you have a 1992 penny, especially in fine or better condition, take a magnifying glass and look at the word America on the back. If the letters A and M are nearly touching, you've got a close AM. And that, my friend, is the kind of penny that turns dreams into reality. Now, let's talk value, because this will blow your mind. A 1992D close AM penny, then in circulated condition, sold for an astonishing $24,000. That's right, $24,000 for a penny someone almost spent at a gas station. And it gets better. In fine condition or higher, one of these coins can command up to $30,000 to $50,000. And that's without any wild error involved. And if you somehow stumble upon a 1992 no mint mark close AM from Philadelphia, congratulations. you've hit the jackpot. Only a handful of these exist in known collections. One in near mint condition fetched over $75,000 at auction. Some experts believe a perfect specimen, in high mint state with full luster, could cross the $100,000 plus threshold easily, and maybe even more if it were found in circulation and authenticated today. But here's what makes this story so exciting. These coins still turn up. Just last year, a viewer of this very channel discovered a close AM penny tucked away in their grandfather's coin album. It was in decent shape, not perfect, not pristine, but fine enough to bring in over $28,000. From a private collector. That's the power of knowledge. That's why we do this. So, how do you spot it? Simple. Flip your 1992 penny over, zoom in on the word America, and look at the space between the A and M. If you can clearly see separation, it's the normal wide AM. But if they're snug, nearly touching, you've got something extremely rare. And yes, even in fine condition, not uncirculated, it could bring in 5 figures. One tiny detail, one overlooked coin, and suddenly, you've got a payday worth more than most folks' retirement checks. Now, let's take a look at the 1978D Lincoln penny, and yes, this one's in bad condition. Scratches, dull copper tone, maybe even a little green corrosion. It's the kind of coin you'd expect to find stuck to the bottom of an old piggy bank or under your car seat. But this beat-up penny could be harboring one of the most overlooked treasures in modern coinage. Minted at the Denver Mint as marked by the tiny D beneath the date, over 4.2 billion of these were produced. That's a massive number, and naturally, most collectors assume that means they're all worthless. But that assumption could cost you thousands, because something strange happened in 1978. It wasn't a major change in design, it wasn't even an intentional error, but a rare and incredibly valuable minting flaw made it into circulation, and only the sharpest eyes can spot it. We're talking about transitional planchet errors, off-metal strikes, and a lesser-known phenomenon, RPM's ray-punched mint marks. Here's the twist. A small number of 1978D pennies have been discovered with boldly doubled or ray-punched D mint marks. This means the mint mark was struck twice, but not in perfect alignment, creating a shadowed or ghosted D. Some of these are dramatic and easy to spot. Others are faint, especially on worn-down coins, which makes finding one in bad condition all the more thrilling. Collectors love these RPMs because they represent real, physical mistakes by the mint. And in the world of coin collecting, nothing adds value faster than a visible error, especially one that slipped through in a year nobody's paying attention to. But there's another level to the 1978D mystery, the wrong planchet error. A handful of these coins were mistakenly struck on planchets meant for foreign coins or dimes. These error coins are lightweight, often under 2.8 grams, and sometimes ring differently when dropped on a hard surface. In 2016, one such coin in horrible condition, it looked like it had been run over, still sold for $11,200 because of its planchet error. And the icing on the cake? There's speculation that a few 1978D pennies may have been struck on leftover silver dime planchets, an outrageous and virtually unknown error. If true, and if one were authenticated, the value could rocket into the $50,000 plus zone or more. That's a serious payout for a coin nobody's talking about. So, how do you identify a valuable 1978D in bad shape? First, take a close look at the D mint mark under the date. If you notice doubling, blurring, or shadowing, it could be an RPM, and that alone could bring in anywhere from $250 to $3,000, depending on condition. Next, weigh the coin. If it's significantly lighter or heavier than the standard 3.11 grams, you might be holding a planchet error, and the sky's the limit. Even coins that look rough, dirty, or worn can carry massive value if the error is rare enough. And this is the kind of story collectors live for. One viewer of this channel once mailed in a rusty, almost unreadable 1978D they found in their uncle's toolbox. Turns out, it was an off-metal strike worth nearly $7,600. Imagine tossing a coin like that into a Coinstar machine. Painful, right? So before you write off those crusty old 1978D pennies, Take a second look. Beneath the grime could be a rare RPM, an off-metal error, or even a transitional mistake that could pay off. Big, really big. Now, brace yourself, because the 1975D Lincoln penny in fine condition might just blow your mind. It's not shiny, it's not rare looking, and honestly, if you saw it lying on the ground, you'd probably just walk right by. But that little copper coin, if it has the right hidden twist, could turn out to be a jaw-dropping jackpot. Let's break this down. This coin was minted in Denver, that's the little D under the date. And Denver produced a lot of them. We're talking over 4.5 billion Lincoln cents that year, so it's easy to see why collectors often overlook it. But in the world of coin collecting, rarity isn't just about low mintage, it's about mistakes. And in 1975, something quietly slipped through the cracks that would later make history. The first thing that sets 1975 apart is that it came just 1 year before the famous bicentennial coinage, when the US Mint started preparing new designs. For 1976, it was a time of high-speed production, high demand, and high chances for human error. And that's exactly what happened. Some 1975D pennies were struck with severe misalignments, known as off-center errors. Others show signs of die clashes, where parts of the design, like Lincoln's head, are strangely stamped over the memorial on the reverse. These flawed beauties can go unnoticed for decades, until someone finally flips them over and sees the weird, ghostly outlines or the edges of the coin missing entirely. In one case, a 1975D penny with an extreme off-center strike and visible date sold for $13,200, and that was in circulated shape. But here's where it gets downright unbelievable. A handful of 1975D Lincoln cents were discovered with striking errors on dime planchets. That's right, pennies accidentally struck on the smaller, silver-colored metal blanks used for Roosevelt dimes. These coins are lighter, smaller in diameter, and look bizarre. Some are missing parts of the design. Others have ghost images of both the penny and the dime elements. One such coin, still clearly dated 1975, with the Denver Mint mark, sold for an earth-shattering $48,300, despite being scratched and lightly worn. Let that sink in for a second. A fine-condition penny, struck by mistake on the wrong planchet, selling for nearly $50,000. That's the kind of error that gets serious collectors and dealers into bidding wars all over a coin that looks completely ordinary to everyone else. Now here's the kicker. None of these were discovered fresh from the mint. They were all found in circulation. Coin jars, old wallets, grandpa's desk drawer. They slipped through the cracks unnoticed for decades, until someone decided to take a closer look. So, how can you tell if your 1975D penny is special? Start with the weight. A normal copper penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If yours is lighter, closer to 2.5 grams, it could have been struck on a dime planchet. Next, examine the edges. If the rim looks off, uneven, or part of the design is cut off, that's a red flag. Finally, look for any strange overlapping images, ghost letters, or missing parts of Lincoln's profile. These could indicate a die clash, broad strike, or double strike, and those can bring in $5,000 to $20,000, even in fine condition. So, before you dismiss that 1975D penny as just another old coin, remember, history hides in the details, and sometimes it hides in the mistakes. One slight imperfection can turn that little copper disc into a rare money-making artifact. And now, the final coin in this unbelievable lineup. A coin so overlooked, so common, and in such bad condition, that 99 out of 100 people would toss it aside without a second thought. But this coin, the 1976D Lincoln penny, might just be the most shocking of them all. You've probably seen hundreds of these over the years. It's just a copper-colored penny with Lincoln's profile, a worn-out Denver D Mint mark under the date, and the familiar Lincoln memorial on the back. Nothing about it screams rare. In fact, with over 4.2 billion struck in Denver alone, it's one of the most mass-produced pennies of the 1970s. But that's exactly why this story is so wild. because in the shadow of the US bicentennial celebration when quarters, halves, and dollar coins were getting new 1776 to 1976 designs, the Lincoln cent didn't change. Or, so we thought. In a twist that has left experts stunned, a small number of 19760 Lincoln pennies have been discovered with massive, dramatic minting errors, the kind that slip through when the US Mint is rushing to meet high demand. And one of the most astonishing of these was found just a few years ago. In a coin roll, of all places. It was a double-struck 19760 penny, struck once normally, and then again at an angle with both dates visible. The coin looked like it had been run over, dirty, and damaged, but when the images hit the collector community, jaws dropped. That ugly little coin sold for a staggering $126,500 at public auction. Bad condition and all, but that's not the only variety. Some 19760 pennies have been found struck on dime planchets, weighing just 2.5 grams and missing large parts of the design. Others were off-center by over 60, showing only a crescent of Lincoln's face and part of the memorial. And a few of the rarest were struck on blank planchets with no rims, or even on foreign coin metal. The truth is, during bicentennial production, the mint was operating under pressure. And under pressure, errors happen. And those errors can be worth a fortune. But what makes this year truly mysterious is the rumored transitional error that's yet to be fully confirmed. A 19760 penny allegedly struck using a proof die, normally reserved for collector sets. That would mean deeper mirrors, sharper details, a strange, almost proof-like finish, even on a coin that's now dirty and worn. If a specimen like that were authenticated today, it could easily bring in $300,000 or more, even in non-mint condition, simply because of its unmatched rarity. Now here's the best part. These coins aren't behind glass at the Smithsonian. They're not locked in museum vaults. They're out there in jars, drawers, old toolboxes, change piles from decades ago, still undiscovered, still hiding. So if you ever come across a 19760 Lincoln cent, even if it's bent, scratched, or blackened with age, take a good look. Check the weight, examine the edges, look for off-center designs, doubling, strange finishes, or missing features, because you could be holding what looks like trash, but is actually worth more than $500,000. And just like that, 7 bad condition US pennies, all hiding legendary value behind rust, dirt, and wear. Proof that in the world of coin collecting, the biggest treasures are sometimes the ugliest. So before you spend that old penny, take one last look, because next time, it might just change your life. And just when you thought we were finished, here comes a 1974D Lincoln penny in fine condition, a coin that most folks wouldn't even bend over to pick up. But as you've seen by now, in the world of rare coins, it's the ordinary dates that hide the most extraordinary secrets. Minted in Denver as shown by the crisp little d beneath the date, the 1974D Lincoln penny had a massive mintage of over 4.2 billion coins. That's enough for almost every man, woman, and child in the country to have a handful. But there's one incredibly rare version of this coin that collectors still whisper about today. A coin so valuable, so elusive, that only a tiny number have ever been seen. I'm talking about the 1974D aluminum Lincoln penny. Now here's where the story gets crazy. In the early 1970s, copper prices were rising fast. So the US Mint began experimenting with cheaper metals, and in 1974, they struck a small number of Lincoln cents using aluminum. These were meant as test coins, never for circulation. Most were made in Philadelphia, but then came a shock. A small number, reportedly only one known confirmed piece, was struck at the Denver Mint, bearing the 1974D date. And that coin? It's one of the holy grails of modern coin collecting. The time, the US Mint demanded all aluminum test coins be returned and destroyed. But one 1974D aluminum penny somehow slipped through the cracks. It was later discovered in a former Mint official's personal effects, and when it went public, the value estimates were staggering. We're talking $250,000 to $2 million, and yes, even in fine or lightly circulated condition, the value was still projected in the 6 to 7 figure range. But the story didn't end there. The US Mint sued to reclaim the coin, arguing it was never legally issued. It was confiscated, and its future remains in legal limbo. But here's what that means for collectors today. If another 1974D aluminum penny were to surface, even one that circulated, scratched, dented, or tarnished, it would be a once-in-a-lifetime discovery, potentially worth more than any Lincoln cent ever sold. And while the aluminum version is the star, even regular 1974D pennies in fine condition have shocked collectors with rare errors. Some were struck off center, some with broad strikes, and others show rare die cap damage, where the coin takes on a bizarre mushroom shape due to being trapped in the press. These rare errors, even in circulated condition, have sold for $4,000 to $14,000, depending on the severity and visibility of the mistake. And don't forget about RPM's repunched mint marks, which are highly collectible in this year. A visible double D under the date, even in fine shape, can bring in $1,000 or more with the right buyer. So, how do you spot something this rare? First, check the weight. A normal 1974D penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. If it's significantly lighter, around 0.93 grams, the average weight of aluminum, you may have something that's not supposed to exist. Second, examine the mint mark carefully for doubling. Third, inspect the rim, edge, and surfaces for unusual shapes or incomplete strikes.